Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Jay Som. Jay Som's first album in 6 years is called Belong. The last one was in 2019. Her song Tenderness that from 2019 was one of my favorite songs of the year. So I am very happy for the new music, and the new album Belong is fantastic. We talked about a lot of things in this episode, and one of the things we talked about was how we reset during the funk of the creative process. She uses exercise and other types of movement, specifically creating clay and also tennis she's getting into as a new hobby, not as a way to generate ideas, but as a reset from the creative process. I use movement as a way to kind of work things out and to be creative, but she uses exercise as a way to kind of, or other types of movement to reset, to get away from it specifically. As I always do, I give my Agatha Christie quote about the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. And lo and behold, I was very excited when Jay Som said that there's a song lyric about thinking when you're doing the dishes. And I'm going to quote her. It's from, she said, I'm in the kitchen, and she may be getting a word or two off here, but she was telling me the lyrics. I'm in the kitchen washing your dishes, thinking of all the things I want to say to you. And I love that. I've never heard someone actually say, yes, the dishes are a great place to be creative. Really like this. Jay Som is also known as a producer, is also a producer, and has produced acts like Boy Genius and worked with Lucy Dacus as well. And I think that it was interesting to listen to how those two things intersect, the songwriting and the producing. And listen, this is her first album in 6 years. Like I said, 2019. So we discussed how much of that was because of writer's block or just not enough to say. And I'm going to leave you with this quote when she said, "It's important to separate my sense of self from my creations. If I was too self-aware, I don't think I'd be having fun." And one more quote, and this is probably my favorite. "When I think about writing and expressing myself through music, it depends on how much work I've been doing on myself and how much I'm willing to share." So that maybe explains a little bit of that gap. Again, the latest album from Jay Som is called Belong, and here is my interview with Jay Som. Are you an everyday type of writer? Is it important to create every day? Or do you feel like forcing it may make things too derivative and you may be less productive that way?
Yeah, this is a great question to start with because talking about songwriting or even viewing myself as a songwriter is like my nightmare. And it is good. It's like a good exercise. I feel
Therapy
like
session, by the way.
I'm like a little scared dog when it comes to talking about lyrical themes and writing and whatnot. But I'm definitely not an everyday writer. Um, I'm like a every 6 years kind of writer type person. Just kidding. Um, I think it is something that doesn't come naturally. I guess, are we talking about like for me? There's like production and how there is writing involved, and then there's like lyrical content, the actual arrangement of like lyrics and themes and stuff. You
So
know?
that's a good question. So let's talk just strictly maybe writing in general. I mean, some
Yeah.
people, if they don't write songs every day, they may journal, or they just may
Yeah.
create in some fashion because they just want to make sure that they're keeping that muscle going.
Totally, yeah. I think when I started off writing songs, before that, I was a heavy journaler or whatever how you say it. When I was a kid up until like high school, and then I discovered recording music and expressing myself through lyrics and emo little emo songs. And I came up with JSOM when I was 17 and started releasing and recording music through that. And I don't remember fully what I was writing about. Maybe just feeling like an angsty teenager, but naturally that evolves into something greater when you're in your early 20s and you're feeling so confused by life, and you're growing up, and that was a way to express myself. And I think I wrote a lot about like escapism and whatnot. But I guess to give background too, um, my my parents are immigrants too, so I learned English from them, and how they piece words together, like, heavily influenced how I even, like, write songs and the way I talk to people. Like, I go back home and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's why I speak the way I do, and that's why I write certain things, in these words together that are, like, grammatically incorrect because of them." And I think it's kind of like a cute, reminder of, like, where I came from. And, I grew up listening to a lot of Death Cab for Cutie, which is funny because that is like lyrical writing heavy. Ben Gibbard's like, he's really talking about something, and he's saying, you know, big words, big themes and whatnot. So that's always been a part of my process that I just want to get better at. So
So let me ask you this. When I ask you if you write every day, you said, I definitely don't. So is it that you wish that you did, or you deliberately don't because you don't want to force things, if that makes sense?
I don't like to force things. I don't. If
Okay.
something doesn't feel good, I'm not gonna do it. I mean, I have a notes app that's kind of been around for a couple of years now, that just kinda has little words, you know, um, and lyrics that I've always wanted to piece together in songs that I haven't yet. And if I'm in a writing session with myself or with other people, I just go to that notes app and I find these, like, little phrases that I can use. But when it comes to, like, sitting down, writing, it doesn't come as natural to me. Yeah.
Do you still journal?
I don't, and that's something I'd like to get back into because, um, one thing I've been doing the last couple of years is if I'm really mad at someone, I just, like, write a fake letter or a fake text, and it's effective. It gets the anger, the resentment out, and you don't have to send it to them. Yeah.
Okay, I have a lot of follow-ups. So
Yeah.
the first is, do you go back to I love that idea, but do you ever I'm assuming you save those. Do you ever go back to those and think, there could be a song idea in there?
You know what? My song cards on the table, that's the opening track on the record. It's coming out soon. It is kind of inspired by some Notes app words. Yeah, just because that song is about, how hard platonic relationships can be, whether it's personal or, in a working relationship. And, um, how you navigate conflict with people that you just misunderstand. There's a deep misunderstanding of each other. So that naturally comes out when you're mad. You kind of want to fake fight with him. Yeah.
So, before I continue with that, I don't want to forget the Notes app, because I do find that songwriters typically tell me they have thousands of voice memos in Notes app, and there's no organization to them whatsoever, and they go back years. So I'm assuming you have just thousands of voice memos in Notes app. So is there any, guys, the first question is there any organization to them whatsoever?
No, absolutely not. I'm with all those other people as well, and yeah, definitely not organized because all of my notes app and voice memos are just titled like new recording 29, and it's me just going la 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 la, or just singing an idea for a chorus or something. Yeah.
So often you go back to those. Are you digging back pretty deep into the archives sometimes to mine for lyrics and song ideas?
If I have to, yeah, and usually I find something like, um, for example, the song "What You Need" on the album. Um, I wrote that with Joao, one of my collaborators who co-produced the record, and uh, I do this thing that kind of works in tandem with songwriting, where when you're doing the demo or you're just tracking and you want to come up with a melody, you just sing something on the spot and you're saying fake words, just like gibberish, like "Oh, na, 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 dishes," and like sometimes phonetically words will come out naturally. And having Joao next to me was really cool because he was like, "It sounds like you're singing this." And it sounds like you want to sing this thing. And we kind of have these little games of writing lyrics that sound like what I was singing, something that sounded like it's from The Sims. So, and then we
This is
just like
years
record on voice memo. Yeah.
this is years ago, and I interviewed a guy named Jack Tempchin, who's a songwriter, and he co-wrote some of the big songs for the Eagles.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, he wrote "Peaceful Easy Feeling" and a couple of the other songs. And he told me a story that when he would write with Glenn Fry, they would do that gibberish, but they named the voice and they called the voice El Blurto.
Oh,
And
blurted.
yeah, but by giving it a name, it became more of like a standardized part of their process, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't like this random thing. It was, let's name this thing. But they found, like you were saying, they found that to be incredibly um productive to kind of start with that gibberish.
Yeah, I love that. It's cool to know that other people do that as well.
So you said something about I do want to follow up with the voice with the letters that you're writing to people because there's this kind of a lot of writers, not just songwriters, but a lot of writers who write about maybe traumatic things or not just traumatic things, but just events. There's two camps. There's those who say they need distance to be able to write about something because distance will give a little more clarity. But those who
Mm,
say that they're better writing in the immediacy of the moment. So
mhm.
where do you stand on that? Do you find that you need distance or is that immediacy more important?
I think the immediacy is more important for me. And I think I get to a point where I'm like, I actually have no idea what the song means to me or what exactly reference point I have in my life. And is this nonfiction and fiction blurring with certain like people in my life? And, it becomes one thing. And then this thing happens all the time where one of my albums is gets released and other people will tell me what they think the song is about, and through that, I feel like I learned about the song more, and I'm like, "Actually, yeah, it kinda does feel like that now that I hear your perspective." I think people's, like, personal experiences inform the subject matter for me, and I get to it feels like time traveling a little bit and understanding why I wrote something, yeah.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you say that the immediacy of it, you're writing about things as such a blur
Mhm,
and you don't really know what it is that you're writing,
mhm.
right?
Yes, correct.
So, but it sounds like you're happy with that. Like
Yeah.
you'd rather not know. Um, and then you're depending on other people then for that meaning later on. And you'd
Mhm,
rather, and I think that's fascinating. That you're comfortable with not knowing those things,
mhm.
and it's easier for you to rely on what other people are saying on that.
Yeah, I think, maybe it stems from not overthinking. That's something I prioritize in my life, and I think with being a creative person, I think for me, it's really important to separate your sense of self from your creations. I think if I was so controlling and so self-aware of my output, I don't think I'd have fun. I love the idea of like the mysteriousness that comes out of music and like yeah, just like thinking like I don't know where that came from. That's really cool. I have a full song and I did this in one day. That's kind of crazy. Or I have a song that I've been working on for 2 years and I couldn't crack the code until a friend came in and was like, "Oh, this is a cool song. It sounds like it's about this. Maybe we should add this like piano and make it like intimate." And it just changes the entire scope of, this songwriting process.
Are you skeptical of those ideas? And again, I think there's two camps here, just with writers in general. Those
Mhm.
who are skeptical of the ideas that happen all in once that pour out, just pour
Mm,
forth, or those who say, there's a reason that happened. I'm not going to touch it. So where do you stand on that?
I think I'm the first one, and it must be from production work. Usually the first idea or the second idea is the best, but I think when you get into the second thing you were talking about, that's usually when you could kill your darlings, but, kill the best parts of a song if you're feeling like, it's going nowhere and you're not feeling right, you just, like, strip to the basics, but for me, I think I try not to overdo choices, because more often than not, I'll have a bunch of drafts for something, and and then I feel so dumb as if I wasted all my time, and then the next day on a fresh day where I'm not hungry anymore and I feel good, I look back and the first couple ideas were just it, and I think that yeah, that comes from experience and kinda trusting your instinct or intuition, yeah.
I like what you said because for me, it is difficult when you feel like you're not being productive, like you actually aren't putting pen to paper.
Mhm.
You have to remind yourself that there's still stuff going on up there in the brain. You
Mhm.
can't look at that as, oh, I didn't write that much today. It's a waste of time. And when I was a professor, I would tell my students your writing process, like if you think your writing process only takes place while pen is hitting paper, you're doomed to failure. But your writing process is
Mm.
taking place while you are thinking, eating, sleeping, working out, walking, talking, whatever it is that you're doing. And I think once I recognized that, and once made sure I told my students that, it really lessened the anxiety. And I
Yeah.
firmly believe that, hey, I'm writing right now, even though I'm not putting a pen to paper.
That's so true. Yeah. You can't you can't do it 24/7. Like where
Yeah.
do you get the inspiration from? Just like the inspiration comes from the mundane and like normal interactions in life. So I love that.
So I want to get very specific with the process then. Ask you a few things. First of all, when it comes to lyrics, are you a pen and paper person or strictly like a phone computer person?
Pen and paper with myself, but phone person when I'm writing with other people. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I get to do like a shared notes app with people, and you get to see updates in real time versus like, it's harder to scribble. But for me, when I'm writing by myself and writing lyrics for JSOM, I like to have my little lawyer yellow notebook. That's my favorite. I use that for everything, notes and just like fun stuff. And I get to do little drawings and like little, I don't know, scribbles on the side. And I get to have my little margins with words that I want to use for a song. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go deep into the rabbit hole on this. So, okay. So we're talking lined yellow paper, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The flip.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then, boy, I've never asked this before. Are you writing on both sides or one side? Because you did made this motion. So you're writing on both sides or one side?
This is embarrassing, but I'm writing on one side. I know I could be writing on both sides, but I use a specific pen. It's like the point .5. Do you know what I'm talking about? The skinny pen?
Listen, not only, first of all, don't be ashamed, because this is why I asked this question, because every songwriter has a specific type of pen and brand
Yeah,
and color of ink. I'm the same way. I have to write with this. I can't write with anything else.
exactly. Yeah, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a feeling, and I don't write on the back. I don't know why.
How about color of ink?
Always black. I remember trying to use red and then it felt strange. It felt like
Wow.
angry, like I was angry or something. So I stick to black, just my favorite pen.
Now you said you're doodling also
Mhm.
around the lyrics.
Yeah, sometimes around lyrics, sometimes I'll put like a little spiky bubble around things, or I'll kind of underline stuff to just like revisit. It's really, really chaotic and messy, and it does not make sense, but it makes sense to me when I see it.
Okay, but here's the deal. I agree 100% because um I think, again, I'm drawing my experience when I was a professor and telling students that the thinking process is chaotic,
Mhm.
and we're not linear thinkers. And so
Yeah,
if you try to write in a linear fashion, you know, like writer's block happens not because we don't know what to say, but because we don't know where to begin, at least as prose writers.
mhm,
And people think,
mhm.
oh, I have to start at the beginning. It's like, no, you don't.
No,
Just why are we insisting on the writing process needs to be linear when
yeah,
no one thinks like that? So I'm with you 100% on that.
I know exactly what you're saying. That's it's funny that you mentioned that because I oftentimes will write choruses first, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, where the hell do I go from here? Now I gotta write the verse." So, yeah.
It's why I would tell my students the linear outline we were all taught, 1 AB, 2 AB. That's the
Mhm.
worst type of outline known to humankind because no one thinks like that.
Yeah, true, true.
And I like I said, it's always, why not a writing process that mirrors how we think, rather than saying, "Oh, I've got to start at the beginning." So I had Lily from Beach Bunny on a couple of months ago,
Mhm.
and I love what she said, because I said, when you cross, she uses a pen too. And I said, when you cross things out, are you putting one line through it or scribbling? And she said, I scribble into oblivion. Uh,
Yeah.
so when you're crossing things out, is it one simple line or is it just furiously?
It's furious scribbling. I totally get what she's saying, but I do one line and then a question mark if I need to revisit, because you could still see the word behind, the line.
I love the quirks. Aren't they
Yeah.
great?
But the question mark is always like a little fun little, "Ooh," you know?
But I worry if there's too many question marks. Do you have a
Yeah,
lot of
true.
yeah.
No, I don't. Usually I don't, um, which is something I'm proud of. I think it'd just be a little confusing if I had too many question marks.
I've had so the alternative to that is, some songwriters tell me, I've had some of them tell me that if they're deciding on a word, what they'll do is they'll write a word above it and a word below it. So and then kind of read the line with each
Mhm.
word individually, and that helps them out.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's great. That's why I have my margin box.
Right. Um, so what about time of day, room, chair? I've got my quirks. I never write and revise in the same place. I mean, I'm a prose writer, not a
Mhm.
songwriter, but if I'm writing in this chair, I'll revise in that chair behind me. So,
Mhm.
are there is there a time of day or a place or that kind of a ritualistic element to it?
Hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I wish I could be that type of person that, like, can write anywhere, can, like, write in a coffee shop, or they have an idea, they're walking down the sidewalk, and they're like, "I need to jot this down." I had a friend like that where she just, like, sometimes write on her shoe or, like, a napkin because she needed to get something down, and I think for this record, I found myself mostly feeling like the safe zone was in my studio, and I don't have a lot of separation when it comes to my home studio and, my actual home. So it when I go into my home studio, it feels like I'm clocking in, and I'm like, "Okay, I really need to do this thing." And, I have a couch, I have my chair, the vibes are good, and usually that's when I can get into a serious headspace to, like, really jot down ideas, and I'm writing as I go as I record, so it kinda makes sense to be stationary in this place. Yeah.
Is there a time of day that you're most effective?
Nighttime. Yeah.
Middle of the night?
But either really early in the morning or really late at night, and late at night could be 2 a.m., and then really early could be, like, 7 a.m. because I didn't sleep the night before. Uh, but, yeah, I get the midday slump very hard, and I try to listen to my body when I'm in that zone because usually it's like yeah, it's like late middle afternoon, and I just feel like that's the worst time to be productive for me, and I feel really distracted. Yeah.
I can't write for long stretches. I mean, I'm good for about 50, like 50 minutes of sitting, but
Yeah.
just it's amazing what 5 minutes of I can just walk around the house. That's going to be fine.
Mhm.
But I definitely know that about myself. So can you write for long stretches?
Hell no. I wish. I mean, what's great is that I have a dog. I have a very domestic life at home, so that means, well, I gotta take her pee. I have to take her outside. She has to go. And those built-in, breaks really, really help with creativity. And I can't do long stretches of writing, but I can do long stretches of recording and mixing because that's just how my brain works.
I was reading some research recently because I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff and how we squeeze the most productivity out of times when we're sitting. And I was reading some recent research. It was like at the Mayo Clinic, and they said that after
Mhm.
50 minutes, if you just actually do nothing for 5 minutes, and I mean nothing, actually like staring at the wall, nothing, not
Mm.
YouTube or social media. There's something about they're finding that that can give the brain a little bit of a reset, by
Yeah.
just, like, doing nothing. It almost it almost gives your brain a break, and you can come back fully
Mhm.
refreshed. I think that's just all that research is coming out because they're realizing it's just not productive for people in any situation to be sitting for long stretches.
That's true, yeah. I feel like that's kinda related to, like, how we should be putting our feet in grass more and, like, dirt to ground ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's also just the idea that movement,
Yeah.
any kind of movement is, freshens your brain.
Mhm.
Um, so that actually leads to me to one of my questions. And the one quote I always give songwriters is this quote by the writer Agatha Christie. And she said, "The best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes." So the
Mhm.
idea that eureka moments happen when our brains are engaged in unconscious activities. They don't happen when we sit down and say, I'm going to
Yeah.
have an idea. Songwriters who tell me they get ideas while they are vacuuming, gardening, doing the
Mhm.
dishes, chopping vegetables, folding laundry, something about monotony, or we get our best ideas in the shower. That when our brains are engaged in activities that require no conscious thought, that's when the ideas bubble up. So, have you ever
It's so true.
noticed that happening?
Oh, I definitely it's cool that you mentioned that quote because I have a lyric on the song "What You Need." And the pre-chorus is like, "I'm in your kitchen washing your dishes, thinking of all the things I wanna say to you." And there you go. I feel like that was also a notes app lyric that I've always wanted to pull from. And there's something about, like, the domestic nature of washing the dishes and just, you're thinking about life, you're thinking about random stuff, and things naturally come to you. So, I I totally get that when I wash the dishes and when I vacuum as well. Yeah.
It's the repetitive nature of any emotion.
Mhm.
Um, and again, there was an article in the Washington Post about a year ago about why we get our best ideas in the shower, and that's the
Really?
same principle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I mention that and people say, "Oh yeah, I keep my phone on the sink when I take a shower because I."
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Damn, I gotta do that.
Now, what about when you walk in the dog? Because that's another thing is we tend to get great ideas when we are moving outside. So do you ever,
Yeah.
maybe not walking the dog, could be walking or biking or anything like that. Does that happen?
Actually, when I walk my dog, it's more in tune with the what you were saying earlier, which is my brain feels more empty. And I think, especially when I'm outside and I'm not cooped up in my room, surrounded by audio gear, I get to breathe the air. I get to move a little bit. And usually I'm thinking about nothing except for my dog and how cute she is and just making sure that she goes. So that always feels like a necessary moment.
And that's the idea of, I think was a little bit what I was talking about earlier, just the
Yeah.
reset.
Reset.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like deliberately using that as a time to empty the brain.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I'm going to read a couple of quotes, and I think these are related. These are from two songwriters I interviewed recently. The first is Christian Lee Hudson, and he
Hmm.
said, "My biggest hurdle as a writer is trying to hack my brain to become less critical."
Hmm.
And then I had Shura on about a month ago, and Shura said, "I struggle with the editor in me that erases it before it hits the page." And that
Hmm.
idea of, I would always teach my students or have my students read the essay Shitty First Drafts, which is the exact opposite of what they're talking about. And that is that
Mm.
you cannot be afraid to write the bad stuff. Get everything out there. But then there's that inner critic. I mean, I had Matt Nathanson on and he called it the assassin. The assassin is that thing
Yes.
on his shoulder that's telling him, don't
Yeah.
write that, don't write that. So anyway, I'd love to get your take on that about if that's ever a struggle with you.
Oh, that's definitely a struggle. I mean, I think I started off this interview by saying that this type of thing is my nightmare. So I think, yeah, just like facing it head on, just thinking, I just think for me, it's always something I'm going to struggle with, and there is some acceptance there, and maybe I haven't done enough inner personal work to understand why it's so hard. And maybe that's also part of why it feels good because I don't have such a deep understanding of why it affects me so much and why it's like my job.
Well, do you struggle with writer's block ever? Is that something that's ever an issue?
I mean, yeah, definitely was an issue because the last record I came out with was in 2019. So I think that kind of shows why I had some writer's block. And I think also when I first started releasing music and, writing about escapism and complaining about my feelings and feeling confused about why I'm alive, that it kind of makes sense because I was in my early 20s, but, as I've gotten older, I've gotten therapy and, I have these beautiful, deep relationships with people. I have an amazing partner that is there for me to talk about anything, and we go through the hard shit together, and, we get through it through the other side, and, we're constantly communicating. So I think for me, it's when I think about writing and, expressing myself through music, it just depends on how much work I've been doing on myself and, um, how much I'm willing to share with people. And I just feel like it's like a private thing for me to talk about conflict and write about it as well.
So Maya Angelou once said, she said, "There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you."
Mhm.
And I take that to mean, there are days when you want to write and there are days when you need to write. You have the urge to
Mhm.
write. I think that's different. So how often does that happen where you've got that agony of the untold story that you feel like I have to sit down and write today?
It happens very rarely. And I think that's part of why I struggle so much with it, because I wish that it came to me naturally. And I wish that, um, it's something fell from the sky, the ideas get downloaded into my brain. But I'm so happy when those moments happen to me, because it just feels so special to think like, damn, I need to go home and write about this thing that happened to me. I need to just get this off my chest. It's the same feeling as like writing a fake letter to someone. It's the urge. And um I'm just always trying to naturally feel instinctual with music and writing and expressing myself. Yeah.
I think though that everyone thinks, I mean, I think we all imagine that everyone around us can write 20 pages in 2 hours, right?
Mhm.
We always feel like I feel like I'm a slow writer, but everyone says they're a slow writer. And I think that anxiety of everyone's faster than me. Why is it they can do those things so easily? But most
Mhm.
people are like that. I think we imagine everyone else is faster than we are, but most people aren't.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right, let's end with this. Um, let's talk about other types of art that inspire you. I find that songwriters are pretty voracious readers, but Ernest Hemingway also said all writers should go to art galleries to get inspired. So I'd
Yeah.
love to get your take on whether it's writing, what other types of art inspire you. I guess do you like to read a lot?
I actually don't like to read a lot. I think, I read way more, pre-pandemic. Something about the, pandemic rewired my brain when it came to books. Maybe something just so traumatic about that time just made me not wanna, face a book. But, yeah, the last book I read was, Ocean Vuong's On Earth We Were Briefly Gorgeous. But, lately I'm really into like clay stuff, air dry
Mm.
clay and polymer clay, just kind of building through that. And I get to make my little trinkets, and I've been doing that for friends. Um, and that also gives me this kind of same dopamine as music, but it's completely different. You're creating and it lives forever, and you just get to put it somewhere on a shelf. So I I follow a lot of TikTok creators that do that kind of work, and it just makes me happy. Yeah.
How did you get into that?
My friend Jasmine, she we really wanted to get into hobbies one summer last year, and right now we're doing tennis, which is great. But we decided to do air dry clay, and we made a bunch of stuff together. Yeah.
So is that like a meditative time? I'm sure that's not a I wouldn't expect that's time when ideas for songs come to you, but is that it seems like it'd be very meditative in a good sense.
It is, yeah, it's like no talking, no music, just working on stuff, laughing, and next thing you know, it's 6 hours. But you've been working with your hands, and there's something really beautiful about the feeling of the mixture of clay and water and just, like, forming things, yeah.
And so are you inspired by like this? Has that gotten you into visual art? Like
Yeah. Yeah, I've really tapped into graphic design, which is kind of funny to say because I'm not like a professional or anything, but I downloaded and bought I think Adobe Illustrator, and I've been coming up with some merch ideas, and there's something so tactical and similar to like when I'm on my computer on Pro Tools recording, and I get to apply certain creative things into the graphic designing. It's a completely different beast of art, but um I love it too. Yeah.
and that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.